Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a meeting of the El Centro City Council for Tuesday, December the 3rd, 2024. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Carter,
Present.
Councilmember Oliva,
Present.
Councilmember Garcia,
Present.
Interim Mayor Pro Tem Cardenas Singh,
Present.
Mayor Marroquin.
Present. And may I have everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilmember Edgar Garcia will lead us.
Hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Councilmember Carter, would you please lead us in an invocation?
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you just simply saying thank you. We asked you to bless all of the Imperial Valley. Just go from the north, the east, the south, and the west. Lord, we know that there's been a sickness going around, and we're asking for you just to take control because this is the season. You just take control and allow everybody to spend the holidays with their family as needed. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Madam City Attorney, any report out on closed session?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. We have no reportable action this evening.
Thank you. Okay, now we go on to our public comments. And first, I would like to read our notice to the public. This is a public meeting. If there is an item on the agenda on which you wish to be heard, you are asked to complete a blue speaker slip and submit it to the city clerk prior to the start of the meeting. Persons wishing to address the council are not required to identify themselves. However, this information assists the mayor by ensuring that all persons wishing to address the council are recognized and also assists the city clerk in preparing the city council meeting minutes. When the item is announced and your name is called by the mayor, please step to the podium and state your name for the record. Unless the mayor extends the time, there is a 3-minute time limit for each public presentation. If you wish to address the council concerning any other matter not appearing on the agenda, you may do so during the public portion of the agenda. However, you may not show a visual presentation without review of that material. If you do so, you will be considered out of order. And at this moment, we do have 3 requests for public comment, and we will start with Ms. Jessica Smith.
Good evening. So my name is Jessica Smith, and I am here because I am seeking clarification on an incident that occurred with animal control. I am the owner of Nova, a 7-month-old American bully dog that went missing on Monday, November 25th at approximately 7:15 p.m. My husband and I, along with some neighbors, searched for her until midnight and posted several messages on social media in hopes of finding her and bringing her home safely. My husband and I resumed our search for Nova on Tuesday, November 26th at 6:00 a.m. for approximately 3.5 hours with no success. Nova was then found by El Centro Animal Control Officer Mark on the same day, Tuesday, November 26th. At 10:52 a.m., I received multiple calls and messages from friends and Imperial Valley community notifying me that at 10:50 a.m., a post on social media was circulated informing the community that a dog, which was Nova, was found and she had been injured after being hit by a vehicle. At 10:54, I contacted El Centro PD and requested a callback from Animal Control Officer. And at 11:04, I received a call back from Officer Mark informing me that Nova had been found, but due to the severity of her injury, she had to be euthanized. When speaking to the animal control officer, I asked to see Nova and to obtain her remains. However, I was told this was not possible as her remains were considered hazardous, and she would be placed in a plastic bag and stored in a freezer for later disposal. I inquired further details on the severity of Nova's injuries, and the animal control officer stated that Nova's injuries were severe, that she was unable to sit up or stand, and when she was found, she was lying down. However, the photos posted on social media showed Nova sitting up. I formally requested a copy of the protocol, policies, and procedures regarding the euthanasia of an animal in this type of situation and made contact with Sergeant Damian Valdez, who provided me with this information and was very sympathetic towards our loss. Tonight, I am here requesting a copy of the diagnostics performed, if any, at the vet office, such as x-rays, PET scans, or MRIs that were performed to confirm the severity of Nova's injuries before the decision was made to euthanize her. Additionally, I am requesting a medical report and a report related to this incident. I personally went to the vet clinic where Nova was taken and requested these records myself, as I was informed that I had to request this information from Desert Vet Group to see if they would provide any information, as it is voluntary from them. However, I was informed by the vet office staff that this release of information has to be initiated by El Centro PD and/or animal control, as our pet was in the care of animal control during the time of the euthanasia, and that the city is legally responsible for all animals who pick up and/or are rescued by animal control. I am deeply upset, angry, and disappointed with how the situation was handled. We were not given sufficient time to recover Nova and make medical decisions on her behalf. Furthermore, the information I received from her animal control officer and other sources appear contradictory and does not align, as I was informed that Nova was euthanized in the animal control truck. Nova was our most recent addition to our family. She had a spunky, sassy, sweet, and loving personality. I am requesting answers, clarification, and accountability regarding this matter. Nova came from a highly prestigious bloodline in the ABKC world, with her grandfather being Dax and her father being Lucky Luciano, both famous and well-known grand champion American bullies around the world.
Mayor, the 3 minutes are up.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I know that it's out of character and perhaps inappropriate to speak up. I've known Jessica for many years. This is the first time that I'm finding out about what happened. I just want to say that I'm very sorry for what happened, and certainly I will ask the questions that need to be asked and do what I can. I'm sorry.
I also echo that. Very sorry. Send my condolences to you both. I know how you love animals. And we will look into this.
And for myself as well, Jessica, and to your family, we will make sure that we follow all the protocols and the questions that you've asked, that they will be answered. Okay.
And yes. Okay. And now we would like to call Mr. Todd Evangelist and Robert Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and rest of the council. Todd Evangelist and a friend of ours, a coach with our El Centro Youth Football Association, Robert Benavides. I just wanted to come back. I know I appeared earlier in the year to say thank you for a sponsorship of from the city of El Centro, which really made a difference. We had a record number of players in our program, and I think it's directly related to the ability for us to charge significantly less, about half as much as well as what it costs to put a kid on the field and what other associations charge. And so that is gratefully appreciated. But if I could, I also wanted to mention that the Parks and Recreation Department have been exceedingly helpful to us in a whole bunch of areas. We decided to kind of practice this year at Wilson Junior High because it was closer to Central. We consider ourselves a feeder to Central, and they'd have lights, and so we thought that would be a good move. But as course would have it, time to time, we were without a field one night on back to school night this or something else. There was a conflict. And so last minute, invariably, I'd call Parks and Recreation Department, and they always picked up the phone. They always tried to work hard to try and find us a spot, and they always did. So I just want to make sure that you all know that those folks in that department work hard and are very accommodating to everybody else. But all that is from an administrative point of view. And so a little bit closer to the kids is one of our coaches. Bobby, if you could, maybe just say a few words about the experience of coaching and kids.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having us here. Thank you, Todd. As previously mentioned, I just kind of give you a small brief look at what we did as a coaching team. A championship 9U football, mind you. We'll ride on that for a minute. But I come before you just thank you from many different standpoints for what the opportunities that presented by the city of El Centro. First and foremost, Todd kind of mentioned what we went through beginning of the season. small debacle with being able to not have a field ready for us. Not only did the city provide us a nice field in Stark Field, but the amenities that have been built up at that field provided safe drop-off zones, nice facilities to use for the kids, fencing, that's security all around, good parking for parents. So what that provided for us was safety, security, a healthy place for our kids to be able to utilize on a regular basis. And that all comes from decisions made here on a regular basis. In addition to that, the Connex box adjacent to the field allowed for us to keep our equipment there as coaches. Bringing that equipment to and from practice can be cumbersome on time. This provided for more time spent with our kids, being able to really build with them, grow with them. Again, a thankful opportunity for you guys that we can share with you. And finally, as Todd mentioned, that money, albeit many of you may not know, some programs in the Valley did charge 2 to 3 times more. This provided for more kids, more opportunities, more just overall growth of our community as a whole in the kids. And so put it all together, what it encompasses is community. And that's why you guys are all here. That's why we are here there as coaches, as parents, as administrators of programs. You guys helped build this. We will continue to see the growth throughout with our community and thank one another for what we're building here. Thank you all.
Thank you,
guys.
gentlemen.
And if I could, probably over our time, just wanted to leave a jersey for Madam Mayor.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
Oh,
We have
nice.
our Spartan Blue. I don't know where Tom DeBose is. We have our Spartan Blue, but we wanted to give you a jersey in our appreciation.
Oh, my God.
Oh, thank
Settle on
you.
it.
Where's Emilio? You want a picture, Madam Mayor?
Yeah, you know what, if you don't mind, can we get a
Of
picture?
course, of course.
You know, then I'll
Robert and
hold
I
up
look
the-
good, so.
Oh, my gosh, I gotta show this to Ramon, because I was gonna make him wear a Spartan jersey if things had turned out differently, you know.
Well, your team won the championship. I know other teams won the championship. We had 3 teams win the championship. We'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that.
Let others figure that out.
Thank you, guys.
Yay, go Spartans.
Yes.
Very nice gesture.
Okie dokie, and next I'd like to call up Mr. Gary Redfern.
Good evening. Regrettably, I'm here again. Same topic as 2 weeks ago. Coin Power Sports racing unlicensed ATVs up and down Wake Avenue, 70 miles an hour or more. Happened twice today, happened yesterday. My neighbor saw it today. I videoed it today. And this is despite Lieutenant Thompson calling me yesterday, Chief Deputy Brown calling me yesterday and informing me that Lieutenant Thompson had told him that he had had a meeting with Mr. Coyne, and Mr. Coyne vowed that this would stop. Well, Mr. Coyne apparently doesn't care about the law. He's throwing this in your face. He's throwing it in your officer's face. This is happening repeatedly. And if it were happening on your street, you'd be standing here too. And this needs to go from discussion to enforcement. Okay? You need to talk to your city attorney. You need to get an injunction or something, because somebody's going to get killed. And then somebody's going to be wondering, well, why didn't anybody do anything? Well, you got a chance to do it now. He needs to stop it. And if he's not going to stop it on his own voluntarily, then you need to make him stop it. And the other option too is that street's a dead end. It's got a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. I'd recommend lowering that and maybe putting in speed bumps. Because I just saw, after they went by, about an hour before I came here, I saw a car racing down there, and it was probably doing 100. And I'm not kidding. And I know who it is this guy in this blue Corvette. And I've seen him before. And they think that's a drag strip because it goes down to the end, and there's a cul-de-sac. And I mean, Coin Power Sports is one because those vehicles aren't even licensed. They're not supposed to be on the street at all, plus they're speeding. But other people are speeding too. And there's so much traffic there now with Home Depot and Goodwill open, and you know, all these big RVs coming in and out of the RV park. I live at Desert Trails. They're lumbering, they're huge, they don't move very well. They can't get out of the way. And one of these days, it's gonna happen unless you stop it. And you need to stop it. You need to enforce it, because he apparently isn't gonna listen to the officers. And they're doing a good job, they're doing what they can. But they're not paying attention to him. And I think that's just a slap on the face to the city. Because you can't tell me that you can't do anything about that. I mean, you need to do something. And I'll hope to hear more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Redford. Alrighty. Okay, so colleagues, we will now move on to the consent agenda, items 1 through 7.
Okay, we need a motion and a second, please.
So move.
Second,
It's not appearing on our screen that allows us to vote.
They don't have the option to vote.
Okay, let me see. Is it on now?
No.
no. There
Oh,
it
there it
is.
is. And we got to press save. It has that save option, even though you press whatever your vote is. Yeah. So
Better to
it still says voting in progress.
vote in progress.
This passed here. We'll do a roll call. Councilmember Carter,
Yes.
Councilmember Oliva,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Interim Mayor Pro Tem Cardenas Singh,
Yes.
Mayor Marroquin.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. All right, and we will now move on to item number 8, public hearing for discussion and any necessary action regarding card room fees. And we have a presentation by Mr. Angel Hernandez, Director of Community Development.
Hi, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. The item before you is a public hearing and resolution concerning updating the card room fees that the city of Centro has. If you remember, at our last City Council meeting, the City Council introduced ordinance number 2405, which approved changes to the city's card room ordinance. And in there, it restated that there are certain fees that were to be established by City Council. Those fees include the card room license fee, the card room employee permit fee, card room table fees, and a card room community benefit fee. And associated with fees and such, in 2019, the City Council adopted a user fee study. And in that study, it introduced methodologies for the city staff to review any new fees by calculating fees. One methodology was using estimates for labor hours to calculate new fees. So that's what was employed in this exercise. And it also established methodology to increase those costs. As time goes by, cost increases, and it also introduced using a CPI cost escalator. And I'll go into more detail about how that would affect these fees. So on,
Excuse
yes.
me, Mr. Hernandez. Madam City Clerk, can you show the presentation? There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Sorry for the pause, Mr. Hernandez.
No, I understand.
Okay.
So on this slide, it has those first two fees I was mentioning, the card room license fee, the card room employee permit fee. And these are basically application fees for the city to process these applications. The card room license fee, just the gist of it is it's a fee to review the card room license application. Now this would be renewed every 2 years, and it would involve finance police staff. So what city staff is recommending is for the new fee that would be set at $410. The renewal, which will occur every 2 years, would be $345. The other fee that's on this slide is the card room employee permit fee. Now, this is a fee for reviewing the permits for the card room employees. So the ordinance has has requirements that essentially the employees of the card room need to be permitted, and that involves having background checks and some work from our police department. And those would get renewed every fiscal year, and that work would be done by the police department. So those fees would be set at $227. These are fees after speaking with finance and police department staff, estimating kind of the hours that it would take to review these applications. This is what's set. And what would also happen is that these fees would increase by the consumer price index annually, but capped at 3%. So that's a similar escalator that we have for many of our existing fees throughout the city. Is there any questions regarding this?
So just for
Yes.
clarity, as we're doing the math, so it would be a one-time $410. It would be, from that point on, it would be $345 yearly. And then the card room employee permit would be $227 every other year, or is it every year, just for clarity?
The renewal is every 2 years for the actual license. So they would pay the card room license renewal fee of $345 every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
The
so
card room employee permit, that's every fiscal year.
every
So
fiscal year.
every year.
Thank you. That was my question.
Okay. Next set of fees. So in 2000, the city adopted a resolution where they established card room fees per table, and that was having a fee of $1,200 upon the granting or renewing of a card room license, and having the card room establishment pay $150 per month for the first 2 tables and $45 per month for each table over 3. Staff is recommending, initially what was being suggested was updating those fees per, basically increasing those fees based on inflation using the methodology from our user fee study. And also having City Council authorize the city manager to negotiate a community benefit fee. After discussions with the Public Safety Task Force, we decided to basically eliminate the table fees and replace them with the new community benefit fee. And the resolution before you would designate the city manager to negotiate the terms and conditions of that community benefit fee. Is there any questions regarding that aspect of the project? So the fees in our report were made for public inspection starting on November 22nd, 2024. A public hearing notice was published in the newspaper the following day. Staff hasn't received any comments or questions regarding these fees, and we have a public hearing scheduled for tonight before the City Council. With that, staff is recommending that the City Council open the public hearing, and after allowing public input, that they move forward by approving the resolution before you. And I'm available for any questions regarding this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hernandez. So I will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item either in chambers or remotely?
Have anybody?
Yes, hi, Jay Carson, I'm on Zoom.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carson.
Hi, Jay Carson, C-A-R-S-O-N. I'm attorney for Lauren Zatisha, who's the applicant. I just wanted to thank staff again for all the work on this project, and we look forward to continuing to work with them and negotiate on the community development fee. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carson. Any other comments or? Alrighty. Okay, so this public hearing is now closed. And colleagues, any questions or comments from Mr. Hernandez?
Just to share that this has been reviewed by the Public Safety Committee that both Councilmember Oliva and I sit on, and we did, just for clarity, vet through the entire process. We looked at the fees. We thought that with inflation and everything that's taken place from its original fee, we thought that it was fair and comparable to where we are as far as the market value is concerned. We also thought it was important to also have a community benefit fee that would in turn then give us an opportunity to just do that, that there would be a benefit to our community that could be invested back into our community for having this type of an establishment. So I just wanted to share that with you, colleagues. We looked at all those angles.
Any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Hernandez, so now are we looking for a motion?
Motion in a second?
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and so that item passes 5-0. All right. And thank you, Mr. Hernandez. And now we move on to item number 9, under new business, annual fiscal year 2025 final budget. And we have a presentation by our interim finance director, Mr. Andy Heath.
Okay, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. For the record, Andy Heath, financial consultant to the city. What I'd like to do for you tonight is just go through the final budget for fiscal 24-25, the current fiscal year that you're in, which we've completed 5 months already. As part of tonight's presentation, what I'll be going through is an overview of the budget development process and some of the things that were considered to put the final budget together. We'll look at the final budget as a whole from a citywide perspective. Then we'll focus primarily on the general fund and the Measure P fund, which are two of the dominant funds in the city. We'll look at other fund groups. There's groupings of other funds. Keep in mind that your city does have 88 operating funds, all which require a budget, a legal budget, to spend the money in those funds. And then we'll look at the final budget, next steps, and some of the questions, answer any questions you might have. With the final budget development process, keep in mind that on June 27th, 2024, before this current fiscal year started, your city council did adopt a budget. You didn't have a formal budget book, didn't have a lot of budget schedules that you would typically be able to review as part of that adoption. So this process that's taken about 5 months to put together actually put all that together for you. And it's a very thick and big document. But that document does include all of the appropriated line items for every fund and all the anticipated revenue that each fund is anticipated to be received over the coming fiscal year. We did present the general fund forecast information to the city's ad hoc finance committee, where we look specifically at the general fund and more importantly, a long-term forecast to gauge the sustainability of the general fund. Recognizing that in the past, certain forecasts for the city's general fund had shown significant deficits. We went through a third-party review of pretty much everything in the general fund and came to different conclusions, which your council has heard several times already as part of the fiscal presentations over the last 5 months. That was done in July 24. We did adopt a revised budget for 4 major funds in the city, recognizing that a lot of money is spent in these funds and you needed a budget for these funds sooner than today. So on July 29th, we actually did adopt revised budgets for the general fund, the Measure P fund, and the two main enterprise funds, the wastewater and wastewater funds. So you have had spending plans in place. Nothing really has changed in these funds from what you adopted on July 29th to today. Other than maybe some revenue estimates and such, but all the major components remain intact. We presented the Measure P fund forecast, similar to the general fund forecast, to the ad hoc finance committee meeting. We did that in August. And tonight, as part of the budget presentation, I will go through that with your council as a whole. We've done periodic fiscal updates to the city council. We did one actually on September 17th, not the 27th, and we did another one 2 weeks later on October 1st. Where we discussed various fiscal things that were going on and some of the things that we were finding as the budget was being put together, some of which we'll discuss tonight. We updated all funds citywide into a comprehensive budget schedules, which you have before you as part of the packet tonight. And then just a couple weeks ago, we actually met with all the citywide department heads, had a very good conversation with all the department heads and the division managers in the city. We discussed all the fund balances and a lot of the funds that the city that you're seeing tonight, and what the fund balances in those funds are, and we're slated to be at the end of the fiscal year. And then we went over very preliminarily the fiscal 25-26, the upcoming budget year process that we're working on right now, and tried to get ideas from the existing department heads and division managers, what they were expecting, so that we could definitely build that in as part of the process. So a lot has already happened. Looking at the citywide budget as a whole, you can see here that there are fund groups that I put together. In this slide, SR stands for Special Revenue Funds, and these are funds that can only be spent for a specific purpose. Then you have an array of funds in each one of those SR-fund groups. Capital projects funds, debt service funds, internal service funds, and successor agency funds also have more than one fund in those groups. And then you have your general fund presented discreetly, similarly Measure P, and then the three enterprise funds in the city are all rolled up together.
Thank you.
Nonetheless, this budget is recommending that your city council approve $180 million, just over $180 million in spending authority for fiscal 24-25. And you can see that the general fund makes up the majority of that at just over $38 million. You have $37 million in capital projects, and really, although there are I think there's 14 capital project funds, only 3 of them have appropriations in them, making up that $37 million. And then Measure P and enterprise funds obviously make up the bulk of the rest. So that's what we'll be covering tonight. Looking at capital projects, your city has just over $90 million in capital projects that are recommended for fiscal 24-25. This has not changed from the budget that was presented in late June for fiscal 24-25. So this just kind of capsulizes everything in the various funds and fund groups where some of those capital projects reside. If I could tell you what some of these capital projects are and what the major themes are, you have a lot of wastewater facility projects, a lot of which were funded by ARPA, the remaining ARPA funds. Your police station project is probably the single largest project that is slated to be undertaken in the current year. You have road projects that include Imperial Avenue, phases 1 and 2. La Boucherie Road is in there. Parks projects, including Gomez Park, Buena Vista Park, and then you also have Yacaranda Gardens project that's also slated in there. So a lot going on from a capital perspective. $90 million of that $180 million that's recommended for appropriation, half of your budget is for capital. So significant amount to undertake in the coming year. Looking at the general fund and the final budget, again, this hasn't changed too much from what you saw before, so I'll cover it very quickly. We did update the estimated actuals for the year just finished 5 months ago. Looks like we're going to bring in about $37.5 million in revenue, offset by about $34.5 million in expenditures. So the net result is a surplus, anticipated surplus to reserves for last year's budget in the general fund of just under $3 million. We'll put one caveat in here because we haven't completely closed out from a systematic perspective the fiscal year for last year. There may be some encumbrances, or meaning money that's slated to be spent that has not been spent that relates to last year that have not closed out correctly in last year's budget. So that may change that $2.9 million number, but you will have a surplus for last year. I can pretty much guarantee you that. In fiscal 24-25, you can see the budget is the same as you saw initially when we did the general fund budget, about $150,000 surplus. This general fund budget is forecasted on a conservative basis. Okay, so we're not trying to overestimate revenues or what the anticipated revenues might be, and we're not trying to underestimate expenditures. So taking all of that into account, the goal is ultimately to bring in a little bit more than 150 if possible. Conservative, and so fully loaded salaries are built into the budget. I have a slide that covers that in just a sec. We have updated the workers' compensation rates. You do know about that, where we lowered them. The workers' compensation fund was being an internal service fund that the city has, was being overfunded. So we lowered that rate to save the general fund and every other operating fund in the city that has staff significant money in workers' compensation. One thing I will point out is although you have $150,000 surplus slated for the current year, there are no labor or MOU increases. So any increases that are provided to the bargaining groups, whether it be this year or in all future years, those costs are not built into the forecast for future years. We never like to get ahead of the city council in determining what we think the increase might be and therefore building it in. That's your purview. And that's for you to decide based on an operating base budget. We do know that there are potential impacts of a compensation survey that may impact rates in the future. So that's to be seen. General fund key revenue, some of the key items on the revenue side. So we've estimated a 3% increase in property tax, slightly higher sales taxes based on the current state of the economy. Transient occupancy tax, those room rates increase with inflation, so 3% increase there. Flat year-over-year development fees. So again, the development ebbs and flows in terms of when those fees come in. So we just budgeted flat for those. And then you have a $2.1 million transfer in from the Measure P fund to cover the non-staff related costs for both the police and fire departments in the general fund. That is actually built in all the way through the forecast for the general fund moving forward. And similarly, what you'll see tonight, the Measure P forecast has that built in as well. Some of the general fund expenditures, the key items. So again, we do have full funding for all positions in the general fund for the entirety of the fiscal year. In the general fund, you have 227.14 FTE. That means full-time equivalents. So a lot of staff in the general fund. You do have a vacancy savings credit that is equal to 50% of the existing vacancies. So that equates to about $1.7 million. There are several vacancies in both public safety departments, police and fire, and some other vacancies in other city departments. We do know that it's not going to be practical to have all those positions filled for the current year. And candidly, that's where a lot of your savings and surpluses come from in previous years, where you just simply budget those positions in their entirety, don't build any vacancy savings, and at the end of the year, because you haven't filled positions, you end up with a lot of money in surplus for the cost of those positions that was never spent. So we have budgeted 50%, and in my conversations with both the fire chief and the police chief, that number will be achievable this year. They are, however, they told me, trying to fill their positions. So look for that in the near future. I know that that is a priority that they both have. $881,000 increase for the general fund portion of the CalPERS unfunded liability costs. It's a nice thing to know that the CalPERS pension fund investment alternative made, I think, 9.3% this year. So about 2.5% more than their target rate of 6.8%. That's good, and that will bode well for the future. So pension costs, hopefully on the UAL side, will at least flatten out or potentially go down because CalPERS did beat that this year. But again, that's a year-to-year thing. So we need to see exactly what happens in future years with CalPERS as well. Just hope that they make 6.8% every year and we'll be good. We also have a reduction in workers' compensation costs to 9% of payroll. It used to be, I think, 11 or 12%. So we reduced that by about 33%, and that results in a savings of approximately $200,000 to the general fund. Increase in liability and property insurance costs, just under $370,000. We have increase in costs transferred out to the water and sewer fund. So this is the cost allocation, recognizing that there are both indirect and direct costs that are contributed to the water and sewer enterprise funds from the general fund. So that increased by $408,000, a reduction in expenditures to the general fund. Increase in energy costs. Energy costs just seem to keep going up for the streetlight program, particularly $80,000 there. And then we have other nominal increases for other base budget items consistent with inflation. For the forecast, which I'm going to show you right after this slide, not much has changed on this slide, but I do want to point out again that you do have the aggregate annual vacancy savings assumption of $1.7 million that's built into each year in this forecast. So to the extent the police and fire departments fill all their positions and you don't have vacancy savings there, that number will change. That's why it's super important as we move forward to update this forecast frequently, not just once a year, not just twice a year, but 3 or 4 times a year, especially when you're trying to fill positions. And you have some of the assumptions built in that we do for this city. So that's important to note. All of the information for 21-22, which is an audited year, 22-23, which is currently being audited, and 23-24 pre-audit estimates, all of that's built into the forecast. And then, of course, we have the 24-25 budget built in, and every year after that is a forecast. Okay. These are some of the key assumptions in the forecast. So you can see we tried to be conservative on the revenue side. Property taxes grow by 2 to 2.5%. Sales taxes nominal increase 1.2 to 1.4%. Other fees there. We maintain annual transfers in from other funds to the general fund. 1.2 million from the gas tax fund to offset all of the street cost, or portion of the street costs that are in the general fund. You have all of your street related costs in the general fund, and gas tax can be used to pay for those. So most of the gas tax money is actually transferred to the general fund for that. And then you have administrative components associated with the local transportation authority fund, some of the lighting and landscape district funds, town center fund, and then of course that new Measure P money that's coming in annually, at least from a forecast perspective, and in the current fiscal year to the general fund for public safety non-personnel capital of $2.2 million. On the expenditure side, all positions are filled with the exception, of course, of that vacancy savings number. No negotiated salary increases. Employment-related costs for like health benefits, those sorts of things, 1 to 2%. And you can see the rest there. I put the 1% labor cost number over in purple on the left-hand side of that slide. So this is what it would cost the city in the general fund if you were to provide a 1% increase to everybody citywide. This is the general fund cost. So it's about $182,000. So if you were to provide, for example, a 5% increase, that's $910,000. That would be added to the general fund and as an expenditure, and then ultimately go against the surpluses that you're about to see. Keep in mind that there are no salary impacts built in for any future year. This is what your forecast looks like under all those given assumptions I just mentioned. So you can see in the past, back to 21-22 through estimated 23-24, we put in $3 million, it's about $3 million, a little over $3 million each year. This year we have a balanced budget. Again, that's because it's being presented conservatively. If you have a lot more vacancy savings, again, you can expect that to go up as we've covered so many times. In the future, all the same assumptions play out, and you can see you're pretty flat. This is a sustainable budget for you. Of course, keep in mind that you don't have salaries built in really yet in this fund. So if we were to add that, for example, 5% increase next year, each one of those numbers starting in 25-26 would need to be reduced by $900,000. Okay, so you can see that now you have some red. However, on a $40 million expenditure budget, having $1 million deficit is not a big deal. Your budget manager, your staff will find that, and we will find a way to bring a balanced budget to you. So I can guarantee you that. Okay, looking at the general fund balance. So assuming that all of these years come to fruition and all these surpluses and or deficits are realized, this is what your general fund fund balance looks like. So you can see it's between 30 and 33 million over the course of the next 5 or 6 years. Of that 33 million, keep in mind that 4 million of that 33 million is related to monies that the city has in a PARS trust, which is a public retirement system trust. So it's a Section 115 trust. The amount, this $4 million can only be used for pension related costs. And we've had preliminary conversations, and we'll come back to your council at some point in time before the start of next fiscal year with a conversation to discuss how to use that PARS trust, and more importantly, the interest earnings and how the interest earnings on that trust, which are a couple $100,000 a year, might be able to be parlayed back into the general fund to reduce CalPERS costs. So that is coming, but that's a good amount. $4 million in a trust fund is better than a lot of cities have, which is nothing. So very prudent levels of reserves. I just want to point out that 32 million represents about anywhere between 75 and 80% of your general fund budget. But that does include the 4 million. So when you take that 4 million out, it's about 70%. So that 70% is a good prudent number. Just some of the key observations. I've kind of covered a lot of this already. Personnel is about 74% of your budget. That's a little bit higher than some of the other cities that I've seen, but for a city your size, it's probably pretty normal. The general fund investment in capital for public safety funded by Measure P, again, $2.2 million is built in annually. The UAL costs, so these are the unfunded liability amortized costs that come right out of the actuarial reports that are prepared by CalPERS. Those go up $1.8 million over the next 5 years. So this is the number that could come down, given that CalPERS is beating their investment return. At least they did last year, and hopefully they do this year, which I'm optimistic about. But that $1.8 million increase, by the way, just so you know, is built into these numbers. Okay, so if that comes down, those black numbers could get larger. So that's a good thing. And then again, the fully loaded cost of providing 1% of salary is about $182,000. Okay, real quickly, and I know I'm going through this fast, but I made a lot of slides. So, Measure P fund. Measure P fund, not too much has changed again from the budget that you saw a couple of months ago. Estimated actuals in Measure P, just under 9 million in revenue, 10.3 million in expenditures. For next year, 8.5 million in revenue, 22.3 million in expenditures, and that is because you've got a significant amount of capital that's built into Measure P for the coming year. The Measure P revised budget, essentially flat sales tax is projected. We have an increase in the debt service costs that are covered by Measure P, which would be the library bonds and now the first full year of the police station debt service, 596,000 additional there. Funding for police and fire non-personal again, but just under $2.2 million, so that is built in. And then you have a $16 million Measure P capital budget, the majority of which is related to the police station. At the end of this year, assuming that you bring in the 8.5 million and you spend the 22.3 million, you will still have about 6.3 million in reserves in Measure P to move forward with. This is what the forecast for Measure P looks like, and you can see that really big dip number in fiscal 24-25. The use of 13 million in fund balance, and that is because of your very aggressive capital plan that you have this year in Measure P, but you're just spending reserve that you currently have that you haven't used yet for things that you need in the city. You can see in future years, 25-26, I think there's some residual costs for the police station that are built in that year, which is why that is still in a deficit. But then after that, you have a sustainable amount of just under, right around $2.5 million each year. And please keep in mind that this $2.5 million surplus in future years does include the $2.2 million in the expenditure for police and fire non-personal. So that's added into those numbers. So you still have a surplus, even given that you're budgeting for that in Measure P each year. These are what fund balances look like. So you can see at the end of this year, it's estimated that we'll have about $6.3 million. And then each year after that will grow depending on how much you add into surplus. Okay. All right, let's move on to the fund groups. So enterprise funds, really the only new enterprise fund that's part of this budget that you have not seen yet is what we brought a couple of months ago is the solid waste fund, which is related to the garbage collections in the city. But nonetheless, no real changes in wastewater. So the appropriation authority we're looking for all the enterprise funds combined, 32.9 million. The total capital in those funds is about 11.4 million, most of which is in the wastewater fund related to a lot of the wastewater projects that are on tap. And then again, looking at the reserves at the end of the day, assuming we spend all the money that's budgeted, water will have 26.8 million, wastewater 19.9 million, and then your solid waste fund, which essentially just appropriates everything it brings in each year, about 368,000. So very good reserve levels there. The next fund group is the special revenue funds associated with transportation. So these are all the funds that are used specifically for transportation and transportation-related projects, gas tax, road maintenance rehabilitation, or your SB1 money, your Transportation Development Authority money, federal highway money, I-8 Imperial Avenue overpass, LTA transportation bonds. All of these funds are used for transportation-related purposes. So out of all these funds, you have a total appropriation authority being recommended at about $9.7 million, 7.1 million of which is capital related. The major projects there are La Bruche rewidening, Imperial Avenue extension, and other street improvements, an array of street improvements. And then at the end of the day, you'll still have about just under $9 million available in all of these funds combined for future transportation purposes, the majority of which will reside in your LTA fund, your local transportation authority fund. So very robust transportation program in the city, and got a lot of sources, which is a really good thing. All right, next fund group is the Special Revenue Fund Other Funds. So these are just funds that I couldn't find a home for, so I just put them in a category called Other. And you can see here that there are things like the CARES Act, your ARPA money is in here. Permanent local housing allocation. You have SB 1383 monies here, some old bond money. So just a lot of different types of funds that can only be used for a specific purpose. So out of all these funds, you have about a $12.3 million expenditure authority that's being asked for. The majority of that is in the ARPA fund, and the majority of that ARPA fund money is related to the wastewater treatment plant. So that's what's in there. And the remaining funds, again, can only be used for specific purposes. So you see the ending fund balance there that's estimated. Some of them are, let's see, permanent housing allocation, 250 grand there. PLHA, Colonia, another 216,000 there. So there's some funding that's anticipated to remain for other types of activities funded by those funds. Other fund groups, Special Revenue Fund, police-related funds. So you have 5 police-related funds. Most of this is related to asset forfeiture and your supplemental law enforcement funding that's received every year. You can see that you've got about 1.5 million as a total budget, 954,000 of which is capital. Most of that is for the police station project and some other safety equipment and vehicles that are budgeted in these specific funds. The police grants fund, most of that is for the police station project. And then you have asset forfeiture. So both of those asset forfeitures are federal, actually. There's no state there. So just change that in the budget itself. But at the end of the day, you'll still have significant balances left over, about $800,000 or $900,000 for police-related purposes.
Mr.
Yes.
Heath, I just have a quick question.
Yes, absolutely.
Just taking a look at this, where is the fentanyl money that we receive from the state?
Where is the
Fentanyl?
I think she's talking about the opioid settlement
opioid,
funds.
the opioid funding. So that's in the general fund.
All right, thank
And
you.
it's my understanding that approximately $1 million has been received already,
Yes,
and another 2 million is slated to come in, I think, or has already come in this fiscal year. So you're probably going to have about $3 million there to spend on that. But, yeah,
thank you.
so
I
you
appreciate it.
that. All right, let me go to. Cover that one. Yeah, cover that. Okay. Other special revenue funds, parks and recreation related. Total appropriation authority there is just about $6 million, just under 5.7 of which is for capital. Gomez Park project, Buena Vista Park project, and Imperial Valley Urban Forest are all part of that capital plan. At the end of the day, you'll have very little left, about $40,000 left for future park projects. But again, that $90 million in capital includes a lot of the things that are in here, and you have a very robust plan. So you're spending your money on things that it should be spent on. Okay, other special revenue funds for housing and urban development, otherwise HUD, CDBG, and home-related funds. This is where your entitlement money comes in for specific purposes related to housing and such. The total budget, about $1.5 million, $884,000 of which is related to capital for clearance and demolition projects. You have $400,000 that's budgeted in an array of many of these funds for potential loans consistent with the reuse plan, for which those funds can be loaned out or reloaned out. And again, these funds can only be used for HUD entitlement purposes, home purposes, that should be CDBG, not DEBG, community development block grant purposes, and as such. So again, having this many of these types of funds is actually a good thing for the city. It just shows that you're really going after the money where it's available. Other fund groups, special revenue funds for impact and mitigation fee funds. So these are the various impact fee and development impact fee funds that you have, and also some mitigation funds that you have. The impact fee funds can be spent consistent with a nexus study that was prepared and relates to AB 1600, which sets forth how you can spend impact fees in your city. You can see the appropriation authority that we've asked for as part of the current budget is $2.5 million, and it's only in two funds. Most of that, actually all of it, is capital. And you have a police station project and laboratory widening project that's being used from the police impact fee and the streets impact fee, respectively. There are two impact fees here. Actually, they're not impact fees, they're mitigation fees. And we've been doing a lot of research to determine what these mitigation fees are, where they came from, and how they might be used. And those are the fire mitigation and police mitigation fees that you see there in Fund 270 and 271. You can see that at the end of this year, with nothing appropriated currently, they're slated to be about $760,000 available. We've been looking at this. We think that they are similar to development impact fees, and we find nothing that suggests so far that they should be treated otherwise. We do need to have one more consultation with the city attorney's office to see how those might be spent. But the city is currently looking at a potential CAD RMS replacement for its police and fire dispatch, and this may be a source of funds for that project. So just wanted to bring that up. You have other special revenue funds related to lighting and landscape districts and community facilities districts. So you can see those programs here. Each one of these programs is set for a specific level of expenditures that is authorized to be spent consistent with an engineer's report that's prepared for each one of these districts every year. So you can see that there's about $363,000 total that's recommended for appropriation in all of these districts. $60,500 of which is for capital in the Buena Vista lighting and landscaping projects. And again, these funds can only be used for purposes that are specified in the engineer's report in these areas. Capital projects funds. So you have an array of, I think there's 14 funds here in the capital projects fund, only 3 of which have appropriations in them. So you have $5.5 million appropriated for Yacaranda Gardens, $1.5 million appropriated for FHA projects, and just over $30 million appropriated from your police bond capital project fund for the police station. So $37.2 million there, most of which is capital, $36.3 million of capital. There is one fund that has a negative balance right now, natural disasters. It had a negative balance as this budget was being put together, but it's my understanding that some of that money is starting to come in now, and that will likely not exist when we come back to you with mid-year, and that will be updated. So I'm not too worried about that anymore. Nonetheless, you do have some other capital projects funds that have balances in them, $200,000, $300,000, $700,000, $1.1 million, that potentially can be used for purposes for which those funds were collected or fees were collected. I have had this conversation with the Public Works Director, and he is aware of some of these funds. So hopefully, soon we can have a conversation about how those funds might be used in the future. Getting close. Okay, debt service funds. So these are funds that are specifically set aside to cover the city's debt service, and they only serve as a conduit. So there is money that usually comes in from one fund to the debt service fund, and then the debt service is paid. So debt service fund just serves as a conduit to other for other funds to make debt service payments. And then you have your internal service funds. So we've had a little bit of a conversation about internal service funds. Internal service funds are set up in the city to basically account for citywide expenditures under a given rate plan that's established to provide the services that those expenditures cover. Things like workers' compensation, termination payouts, unemployment costs, retiree health insurance, and then you also have active employee health benefits on the employer cost side that are also covered by these internal service funds. Total appropriation we're looking for is about 7.1 million. The majority of that is in your group health benefits, about 4.1 million there. So this is the employer cost to provide group health on an annual basis. One thing you can see here is that even though we're spending this money, which essentially we collect the same amount of money every year, we still have significant fund balances at the end of the day in all of these funds. Okay, so the workers' compensation fund is going to end the year with just under 5 million in fund balance. The OPEB and unemployment fund is going to end the year with 13 million in fund balance. And that's a good thing because you have an OPEB trust similar to, which has about $11 million plus in it, similar to the PARS trust that you have. And that can cover health benefits basically, specifically for retiree, but it can recover health benefits. It can cover health benefits. Group health benefits, 4.7 million remaining there. And then your motor vehicle fleet fund, about 670,000 there. So one thing that I will be working on with city manager and staff over the next couple of months is really coming up with a recommendation on how to lower these fund balances simply because they're not needed, either by reducing the expenditures that are charged to other funds to provide these internal services to the city, or by taking some of these funds and redistributing them back to the funds which paid them over a lot of years in the past. So we'll be looking at that, but those fund balances are simply too high at this point. Finally, we have successor agency funds. So successor agency was put in place to essentially account for the dissolution of redevelopment back in, I think, 2011, so it's been a while, and the redevelopment agency itself, and then the housing authority for the redevelopment agency as well. So this covers all of that, basically these monies can only be used for former redevelopment purposes, which in your case is pretty much only debt service that remains. So $3 million budgeted there. And then again, once the redevelopment agency is paid off and done, all of this stuff will go away. All right, so that's the budget in a nutshell. But for next steps and some of the things we'll be doing over the next couple of months, as I stated earlier, we will continue to update that general fund forecast and your major P fund forecast once we have a really good line on what 23-24 ends up looking like, because we're getting in the process of closing that year. We'll do a fiscal 24-25 mid-year update to the city council for all of the major funds in the city or those funds that have a significant change. And that will hopefully be in late February 2025. Work with all the department heads to begin preparing the proposed budget for 25-26. So we've had initial meetings just today, Liz and I were talking about the budget calendar and going over that budget calendar with internal staff, and then ultimately bringing that calendar back to the city council for approval and in discussion. And that'll be maybe at the next meeting in December, no later than the first meeting in January. Review alternatives for use of those internal service fund balances I mentioned, and then determine options to program funding from the retirement and the OPEB Section 115 trust, which collectively have $15 million in them that the city can use in some way, shape, or form as part of the operating. I'll stop there. It's a lot of information very quickly. I apologize, but wanted to get it done, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Yes.
Mr. Heath, I just want to thank you. What an amazing job in putting all this information together. There's a couple of things that I walk away from just your presentation, and one is I really appreciate the opportunity to get the input from our department heads. They're the ones that really know what the day-to-day operations look like for their departments and what those expenses look like. So I really appreciate the openness and the opportunity for them to provide input on their budget. And I think this is probably, since we have contracted your services, that we truly have had an opportunity to see where we stand as a city immediately at the touch of a button. And I know that, you shared the slides with us, but I know it's hundreds of hours that have been put in by the department to give us this information and to be very transparent with our constituents. So I thank you for the great work that has taken place under your leadership. And I appreciate that, and Cedric's, of course. But I'm just really excited what the future looks like. And to my colleagues, congratulations for showing a surplus of almost $3 million, showing the fiscal responsibility that has taken place to ensure that we are meeting our fiduciary responsibility. So congratulations, colleagues.
Thank you, Councilmember Cardenas Singh. Any questions or comments from Mr. Heath, from Mr. Garcia, Councilmember Carter?
Oh, I just want to actually piggyback what Mayor Pro Tem Martha Cardenas-Singh just said. It was the teamwork, that's what stood out to me, because when he did mention that he collaborated with all of the department heads, that was really a plus sign, because you can't just go off of what you think or what you have to say, and you went out and you branched out, and that was really good. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for all of your hard work as well, too. This takes a team. This is a lot of work. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot of behind the scenes, and I just want to thank you.
Andy, this was by far one of the most detailed, intense, dense presentation, but I think it just merits to highlight the amount of work that you put into it. This certainly, like I said, it has been the most immersive, detailed presentation financially in the city that I've seen in the 6 years that I've been here. And so I just wanted to say thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you for highlighting and finding the pennies under the seat cushions, for us, because you certainly have been able to not only rectify previous years and ensure that everything was there, but also be able to give us a forecast. And that is certainly something that is new for us, to have a 5-year forecast as opposed to what just the next year looks like. And so very much appreciated.
Mr. Heath, just thank you for the peace of mind that you've given us. I know that this has taken lots of time, and your expertise is in this field is greatly appreciated, and we really greatly needed it. And along with the help of Liz and Miguel in the department, because I know that it takes a team, to bring all of this, together. I express my sincere gratitude for giving us that peace of mind that this city is financially solvent. Thank you. And so now, colleagues, we need a motion.
So move to accept the.
Second that,
sorry.
Madam Mayor.
I got a cute little picture of muskrats. I have a cute little picture of muskrats that doesn't give me an opportunity to. vote.
Still the
No.
same.
The muskrats are still looking at me.
The family.
I think it's just
I wanna start
the
singing that
window needs
song.
to open up for her. That's all.
Got it.
Start charging IT.
I know.
Okay, Mr. Heath, that item passes 5-0. Thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you.
Right. Colleagues, we move on to item number 10, discussion and any necessary action regarding the award of the 2023 ATP Cycle 5 Improvements Project. And we have a presentation by our Public Works Director and City Engineer, Mr. Abraham Campos.
Hi, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Before I do that, I'd also like to thank Finance Department, Andy, Liz, and Miguel for the outstanding budget presentation. As you can see, there's a lot going on, a lot of funds, and the deep dive, forensic dive that they have done on the project. So thank you for that. It's really appreciated, and thanks for the meetings. Going forward, let's spend this money that we just found, right?
Okay, Mr. Million Dollar Man.
So what we have before you tonight is it's a really a public safety, public improvement project where we're trying to not only encourage our community to bike, ride, walk, and increase the safety in one of our busiest corridors here in the city of Central, Imperial Avenue. I mentioned in prior meetings, Imperial Avenue between I-8 and Adams and so forth carries about the same traffic load as I-8 interstate in terms of volume of vehicles. As you know, here as well, we have Central Union High School, Wilson Junior High School, and there's several crosswalks including the one by the DMV, that over the years we've done improvements to by adding rapid flashing beacons, by synchronizing, by improving signal. However, as we continue to grow and traffic keeps growing, which is a positive for our economy, we are always looking at ways to increase safety even more. With this, and in coordination with our planning department, with Angel Hernandez, we were able to secure an ATP grant. The ATP grant is a state grant we applied a couple of years ago, and we completed the design for this project. The project that we're talking about today is a project that we took to bid, and we're coming to council to request council award the project. The project will construct a signal light, a brand new signal light on Pepper Drive by the hospital. This is a crossing that's been requested by hospital staff and the public at large because of the pedestrian traffic and between the medical centers west of Imperial Avenue and obviously the medical facilities east of Imperial Avenue. So this new signal light will help not only with traffic, but with pedestrians as well, being able to safely cross the intersection or more safely cross the intersection. New to the county is a pedestrian hybrid beacon. So you'll see a new pedestrian hybrid beacon on Holt and on Barbara Worth. As my understanding is, it will be the first in the county. So obviously, before we bring these to the county, we'll have a heavy PR on educating the public on how these function and what to do when they approach them. You might have seen it in other cities. It looks as a signal light, except it's always dark until a pedestrian pushes the button. Then it goes into a rapid flashing, not a rapid flashing, a flashing yellow light to allow motorists a chance to be aware that a new signal is coming. And it goes into a standard signal light pattern where it's a solid yellow light and then a solid red light. So a solid red light is at that point where the pedestrian can cross. And this is better as compared to our rapid flashing beacons at the current location, in that in a rapid flashing beacon, the pedestrian pushes the button, they immediately get the amber lights strobing, and vehicles need to stop or are suggested to stop, but not required to stop. So it's a suggestion, hey, pedestrians, be aware of this pedestrian crossing, and it might be at cycles where it's not synced to the signal lights, where maybe the signal light just before it got a green, and then you get a pedestrian pushing the crossing, and it disrupts the flow of traffic. So what we do with these pedestrian hybrid beacons, they'll be synchronized to nearby signal lights, so the pedestrian will have to wait. They'll push the button, they'll wait until there's a break in traffic as determined by the computers, and at that point, they'll get the crossing. So it won't affect traffic that much in the sense of the platoons will continue to flow, and it will make it safer for pedestrians. Other improvements that we're doing, other than the pedestrian signal lights at Holt Avenue and Barbara Worth, we're upgrading the crosswalks with a new standard. The new standard is a ladder design, as you see in the crosswalk. It's been in the standard for some time, or not an upgraded standard. The current standard that we have is still a valid crosswalk, but it's a high visibility crosswalk. When you add this ladder style or this crossbar style, it's just more visible for the public. So the other intersections here in blue will be upgraded to this type of striping. The project was put out to bid. We had a pre-bid meeting. We had one potential bidder come into that. We said, you know what, it's only one. We're not going to get good bids. But we had a second pre-bid meeting just to get the word out. We had a second bidder come in and take a look at it. At the end, only one bidder submitted a bid. And so that is Rove Engineering at $2,848,023. Out of that, $882,000 is from the state ATP fund. The remainder, $2,250,825.30 are from Measure D LTA. Now we're all versed in all these accounts. So this is how we fund our capital projects. We're also asking for a contingency that's included here of the 10% of the contract, which is 284,000 and change. So this project, at the end of the day, we're expecting it to be around $3 million. The contract award, 2.8 million and change as presented in the agenda to Rove Engineering with a 10% contingency to perform these pedestrian improvements on Imperial Avenue. So with that, I take any questions, and I'm requesting your approval to award to Rove Engineering.
Questions or comments from Mr. Campos?
I had one quick question. You mentioned, Mr. Campos, that one part of, or one fraction of this amount is from ATP, the other fraction is from Measure D. The contingency amount is from?
Measure D as well. It's split between at a proper ratio.
Oh, okay, understood. Thank you.
I'm excited.
And I'd like a motion, please.
So move.
I'll second. Uh-oh.
You get little
Hit
Miss
no.
Rats too?
Put no.
Please put no.
Okay, Mr. Campos, that item passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. And we now move on to item number 11, award of bid, landscaping and lighting maintenance district, contract for general landscaping services. And we have a presentation by our Community Services Director, Mrs. Adriana Nava.
Hello, Honorable Mayor, Council. I'm going to open up our presentation.
Okay.
So sometimes we go full circle with the agenda. We had Todd earlier here speaking about the facilities. He specifically uses Stark. We're proud to accommodate all of the leagues who come to El Centro and bring kids from not just El Centro, but throughout the valley. And they use all of our facilities. So that means mowing, trimming, restroom cleaning. And so the contracts that follow all are in that same vein. And then we had Mr. Andy Heath also discussing each of the funds. And so today, I guess this will be a little bit of a deeper dive as to some of our facilities and where the money gets spent. So this first one is landscaping and lighting maintenance districts, which he just discussed. Shortly, why do we rely on LLMDs and contracts, right? So as the Parks Division is 7 individuals, we have a park supervisor, Javier Villaverde, a lead worker, Chris Caldwell, who's in the second one in that photo. And then we have other employees that assist mainly with a lot of our breaks that occur throughout the city. They also assist us with special events. They do a lot of activities. And so in total, we have 111 acres of park space and then 20 acres of retention basins. So we cover numerous facilities throughout the city. And so some of these contracts assist with some of these services because 7 individuals couldn't possibly cover all of the city. So as to our LLMDs, this contract is 3 of them. We have Buena Vista, Legacy, and Town Center. Legacy includes a park in the center, and then a portion of those fees also goes towards a retention basin that includes a park space. However, those funds are only used for the retention basin, not the park space, because that's a separate subdivision. And then we have Buena Vista, and that is the park that is currently under construction. A portion of it, 3.96 acres, is going to be a park out of the entire 8 acres. And so this contract also includes for the next fiscal year, the landscaping, the mowing that will need to take place in that park, because it looks tiny from here, but it's 8 acres. In addition, in that district, we have 111 palm trees. So that means that all of those palm trees need to get skinned every single year. Otherwise, they create a mess in the community. And then Town Center, they're building new homes. And so the city maintains the right-of-ways that front the streetscape. So just as to what our timeline was like, you can see from August to December, city staff, specifically Javier and Gustavo, and myself worked on reviewing agreements, going over the scope of work to ensure that any complaints that we had received from residents were included in that scope of work. In addition to that, in accordance with our procurement process, we do the notice inviting bids in the Imperial Valley Press, newspaper general circulation. We also have a pre-bid meeting, bid opening and review with our city clerk. And then tonight we come before you to give you the information and hopefully award a bid. So for us, this contract is covered through Lighting Landscaping Maintenance District, which means those homes and properties get assessed, and from that we recover the funds. So the lowest responsive bidder was Executive Landscape at $69,496, and that is the annual cost. They currently hold this contract, and they were also determined to be the lowest bidder. So with that said, any questions? And if there are no questions, ask for approval of the resolution before you.
Colleagues, any questions or comments from Mrs. Adriana Nava? Okay. So, Madam City Clerk, we have a motion by Councilmember Carter, and I will second. I can't. Oh, there it is. And that item passes 5-0. So now we will move on to item number 12, award a bid, large city parks and retention basis contract for general landscaping services.
So you'll see our contracts are divided. The first one we went through was lighting, landscaping maintenance districts. This one is for large parks and ball fields. These are included in this contract generally because they require a lot more mowing. Our other contract for small parks is less mowing, more pruning, more desert vegetation, so different skill sets. We also divide contracts because it's better to have competition. Otherwise, if you give one contractor all of your facilities, then there is really less incentive for them to work hard towards that contract. So that's another reason why we divide contracts. So this one includes all of the facilities in green. So Buckland Park generally, Countryside, Farmers, Debbie Pittman, a lot of our ball fields. This is some of the types of vegetation that you see. Obviously, these are some photos of Buckland. One of them is McGee. The other one is Plain Park. And then again, we did all of these all in one shot. So the timeline is the same for them. So from September to December, we worked on these items. And then cost and funding mechanism. For this, the large parks are covered under the general fund. The current contract amount paid to advance is $152,580. The new contract is greater at $284,140. Mind you that this contract is one of the oldest contracts we have, so this is adjusted for inflation. And also we have added new facilities that require maintenance, mainly retention basins that back people's homes. And so sometimes with windblown debris, overgrown vegetation when it rains. And so the goal is to scrape and clean up all of those, and those are going to be done on a quarterly basis. And the lowest responsive bidder was Advanced Services at $284,140 annually. And that's pretty much it for this one.
Alrighty. So, colleagues, any questions or comments from Mrs. Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Oliva. And Councilmember Carter second. And that item passes 5-0. And so we move on to item number 13, award of bid, execution of a contract for routine janitorial maintenance for parks and other public areas. Floor is yours, Mrs. Nava.
Thank you, Mayor. On the very same note, so many of our parks have multiple restroom facilities, and so we rely on janitorial services at many of our parks. There are some new additions that weren't in our previous contract. The Transit Center on 7th and State, and then also the dog park, which also includes a new restroom. There is, some of our restrooms also have been removed. We had one at Gomez, and so there's a bit of a wash on some of our facilities, but generally we have new improved restrooms which require routine cleaning. So we went through the same process. We did do a notice inviting bids. We did a pre-bid meeting. And then for this one, we had two companies bid. One of them is the Work Training Center, and the other one, the name of the company is Base Hill. And then our last one was DC Car Enterprises. The two highest scoring, we did interviews with them. We've worked with the Work Training Center for a long time, and so we did do interviews. After completing interviews, the bid results resulted in Base Hill being recommended by staff due to pricing and also the interview. So here is the tabulation of cost. They were both really close, which means normally for us as we review that it's a good bid when they're close in pricing. One of them was much greater, and so it's a bit more of an outlier. And then just to mention again that it's important to underscore that this new contract includes new facilities that were not in existence in 2018 when our original contract was executed. And that's pretty much it if there are no further questions on this.
So it looks like we have no questions or comments, so may I get a motion? So moved.
Second.
And item number 13 passes 5-0. And now we move on to item number 14, award of bid, small parks and various city facilities, contract for general landscaping services.
So this is our final one. This one covers many of our city facilities, including hall, the economic development office, business incubators, aquatic centers, park, essentially all the facilities along Park Avenue. Also new facilities such as the library, which has extensive landscaping as well. Some of our smaller parks like First Responders Park are in here, and then some of the streets. So we have a circle by the hospital, Cypress Circle, that gets mowed. Different areas throughout town that also get mowed where we don't have LLMDs. And so just to give you an example of some of the facilities along Park Avenue and what it takes. So there's a lot of desert landscaping, some mowing, but in smaller amounts, and some tree pruning. So the timeline was the same from September to December. We followed the same process. And then as it relates to the funding mechanism, so this is one of the contracts that's paid from the general fund. The current amount paid to Executive Landscape is $149,593. And then the new contract amount, if approved, would be $159,000. The last time we brought this item before you was in 2018. So the lowest responsive bidder in this case was Executive Landscape at $159,496 annual costs. Any questions?
Can I get a motion to approve, please? Did you get that, Madam City Clerk? Yes. Item number 15 passes 5-0. Thank you, Mrs. Nava.
Thank you, Council and Mayor, for your support, and thank you to the staff that works diligently. I know it looks easy when it's all finished, but the process is intense. And then thank you to Andy and Liz and Jen who've been working with us on all of these, and we've been doing a lot of cleaning up, so it's been really nice and a great working experience. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Nava. So now we move on to item number 16, agreement between the City of El Centro and the American Red Cross for use of city facilities.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Excuse
it's
me, I
item
skipped number 15, excuse me. I remember seeing Mr. Hernandez's name on here. Number 15, excuse me. Discussion and any necessary action regarding a master tax share and fiscal impact agreement between the County of Imperial and the City of El Centro. And once again, we have a presentation by our Director of Community Development, Mr. Angel Hernandez.
Hello
Sorry,
again.
I skipped
I was
you,
a bit
Mr.
worried.
Hernandez.
This is a huge milestone. It needs a drum roll.
Yeah, yes, it does.
It needs a
Yes.
drum roll.
I don't have a presentation, but just essentially, these master tax share agreements, these are required before LAFCO, the local agency formation commission, approves any annexations that the city of El Centro recommends for approval. The one before you will be for 1 year, and what these agreements do is they distribute the tax share of newly annexed areas of the city. As you may know, the county of Imperial already approved on their side the agreement, and I'm available for any questions. And just to remind people that we do have basically one annexation on hold, and we do have another annexation that I suspect would be coming before the city council in the next couple months. And with this, and also the service area plan, which is planned to come before you at the next city council meeting, we'll be ready to start processing these annexations before LAFCO. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Right, this has been a
Oh my
highly
gosh.
anticipated item. I don't think that my colleagues have any questions or comments. I think we're ready to vote, and I motion to approve.
I'll second. Yes, amen to that one.
Who will second?
I will, Madam Mayor.
Alrighty.
Let's get this city growing.
Yes. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Hernandez. Thank you. Mr. Salcido, thank you.
City growing.
I was excited.
Chief Bernal,
It
sorry
was
to
for you.
disappoint you. It wasn't
Half
for
of
me.
it was for you, cheaper now.
All righty. Okay, now we will move on to item number 16, which is an agreement between the City of El Centro and the American Red Cross for the use of city facilities. And we have a presentation by our Fire Chief, Mr. Joseph Bernal.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. Tonight, we have before you a resolution to approve an updated agreement with the City of El Centro and the American Red Cross for temporary use of some city facilities during a disaster. So essentially, this agreement outlines the terms in which the Red Cross can use designated city facilities during disasters for emergencies and disaster-related activities. The parties involved, again, are the City of El Centro and the American Red Cross. And the facilities covered specifically in this agreement include the community center located at 375 South First Street, the MLK Sports Pavilion, and the Conrad Harrison Youth Center. The conditions of use essentially allow the Red Cross to temporarily use the facilities for disaster shelters, operations, and supply storage upon approval. The cities must be used in compliance with all state, local, and federal laws and accessibility standards. And the agreement also outlines some prohibited uses such as smoking, alcohol use, drugs, and so on and so forth. Also outlined within the agreement is how the facility management will be approached when in the event that the facilities are used for a disaster. In this case, the Red Cross and a facility coordinator, which is appointed by the city, will oversee the operations. Security and will be coordinated through the Red Cross. Any reimbursements for damage other than day-to-day wear would be covered by the Red Cross as well. Insurance and liability the Red Cross must maintain their insurance and liability, and will indemnify and hold the city harmless for any damages or claims resulting from its use of the facilities unless caused by city negligence or misconduct. And lastly, the terms and the termination of the agreement. The agreement will be effective on the date that it is signed, and then it will remain effective until terminated by either party who would then initiate that termination by a written notice, and 30 days after that written notice, the agreement would be terminated. We have had this agreement before. This is just essentially an updated agreement. As you have probably recalled, that we have utilized those facilities recently over the last few years in some of our storm events that have passed through, and I think we've seen the good that can come out of the utilization of our facilities to house, some of our population in the event that they don't have anywhere else to go. So That is it as far as the update on that, and just looking for approval on the resolution to enter into the updated agreement with the Red Cross.
Colleagues, any questions or comments for Chief Bernal? No? I guess can I seek a motion to approve, please?
Move to approve, Madam Mayor.
All righty, thank you. And I will second that. Chief Bernal, your item passes 5-0.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to stay up here for a couple more if you don't mind.
Now it's time to
All
spend
right,
money.
okay.
It's time
Yes.
to spend money.
Item
This
number
is my
17.
favorite one of the night.
Oh, my gosh, so, alrighty. So we move on to item number 17, approving the purchase of a Rosenbauer Viper fire truck. All right, take it away, Chief Bernal.
Right. So as you might recall, as a part of some of the ARPA fund expenditures that were recently allocated, 1.5 million were allocated to the purchase of a fire truck for the City of El Centro Fire Department. And that truck specifically is going to be a Rosenbauer Viper engine. It is equipped with a 109-foot ladder, and the total purchase price is $1,502,211.66, which includes tax and fees and trips out to South Dakota for our personnel to do the inspections before it is delivered. The estimated timeline is somewhere towards the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter of next year. It is obviously being currently built. What I'd like to kind of point out here is what it's going to be replacing. At last meeting, we were fortunate enough to donate a 2006 American LaFrance to the City of Mexicali. The unit that this Viper will be replacing is essentially the sister engine that was purchased alongside that other American LaFrance. So we have a 2006 American LaFrance Quint, which has a 75-foot ladder, and it is approaching again the end of its service life. And we are very excited to add this. Now, this ladder is going to obviously bring a contemporary unit to our fleet, and it's going to add versatility in the fact that we have a 75-foot ladder right now. We're upgrading to 109 feet, and it's going to be able to really add to our operational capability and our firefighting capability when it comes to multi-story businesses within the City of El Centro. It's going to really enhance the capabilities of our fire department. So I really look forward to bringing this unit on. And then with that said, I also look forward to potentially coming back to the council with potentially another donation of the unit that we're going to be replacing it with. So with that being said, this one's kind of short and sweet, and just looking for approval on the resolution to enter into the agreement to purchase the fire truck. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Colleagues, any questions or comments for Fire Chief Bernal? No? Alrighty, so I motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Councilmember Carter, second.
Excuse me, Mayor, who was first?
I was first,
Okay.
and Councilmember Carter was second. Chief
Thank you
Bernal,
very
looks like you're
much.
getting a brand new fire engine. Are you going to put a big red bow on it, and then we're going to go out and have a little ribbon cutting ceremony for
We're
it?
going to make a big to-do about it.
All right.
All right, looking forward to it.
I am too, very much.
All righty. Thank you, Chief. Wow. All righty. And one more item. Item number 18, presentation of automatic aid pilot program agreement. Chief Bernal, take it away.
All right, so this one I bring to before you today is a bit of an informational session prior to me bringing the agreement here in the very near future. I wanted to take the opportunity to educate you on this proposed agreement that we're going to enter into with the County of Imperial, the City of Imperial, and American Medical Response, specifically this automatic aid agreement. So currently, the City of El Centro and the other agencies within the valley participate in what's called mutual aid. Now, there is a difference between mutual aid and automatic aid. Essentially, with mutual aid, it's more of a reactive process, as you see here, where the incident commander on scene makes a determination that the resources that are available currently are not sufficient to mitigate the incident, so they essentially call for backup, right? And that's when the other agencies then respond. You can see that there is going to be a time lag in there, as it's the incident commander making that determination based off of the resource utilizations and then the lack thereof. So whereas the automatic aid agreement is a prearranged agreement between the agencies where the resources are automatically dispatched. And in this case, dispatched to pre-designated types of emergencies. The units from neighboring agencies are dispatched simultaneously to ours, essentially eliminating that time gap in the request for the resources. It ensures quicker response times and putting more resources on scene quicker. So in this agreement, it is going to be a one-year pilot agreement. So within that, we've kept the scope of the work very limited for right now. In this instance, we're only going to respond to structure fires and roadway incidents involving 3 or more patients and technical rescue scenarios. Essentially, the agencies that are participating are going to provide 1 fire apparatus with a minimum crew of 3 to each other's incidents. So for example, if the city of Imperial has a structure fire, city of El Centro will provide 1 fire engine with a minimum of 3 personnel, and we would expect that reciprocation if we were to have a similar incident. And then also I mentioned American Medical Response. They have entered into this agreement as well with the desire to provide an ALS ambulance and their supervisor to provide rehab for our personnel, which is medical monitoring and things of that nature, where our guys and gals are going in, fighting the fire, and when they come out, they need hydration, they need their vitals checked. That American Medical Response, AMR, has made that commitment to provide that resource for us. So what does this do? Why are we asking for it? Because basically we're trying to enhance our effective response force. So the NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, their standard 1710 identifies an effective response force as far as what do you need on scene to ensure that personnel equipment are able to perform the essential tasks such as suppression, ventilation, things of that nature, all the things that you see us doing on scene. What do we need at minimum to basically work at an optimal level? And that recommendation out of 1710 is that we need 15 to 17 personnel on scene. So for reference, the city of El Centro, our minimum staff daily is 10. So that's 3 fire engines with 3 personnel and 1 battalion chief. So you can see that even though our shifts are staffed out for 13, we do have 3 vacancies. So we have 12 per shift, and that's our minimum staffing is 10 because that accounts for vacation and things of that nature to make some room there. So we don't, as the standard outlines, maintain that effective response force. So entering into this automatic aid is a way to augment the number of personnel responding on scene to bump that response force up. Again, including fire suppression, ventilation, search and rescue, the incident command, and the rapid intervention. So what does it do? What is the benefits that we're going to get from this? Faster response times, right? We're cutting out that lag between the mutual aid versus the automatic aid. So there's a time difference, and that's one of the main benefits. We're getting personnel on scene to mitigate the issue quicker. It's nice. We can cancel them if we don't need them, whereas instead of getting there and realizing that we need somebody that we don't already have coming. Obviously, too, I think one of the main benefits for our personnel is the improved safety. More personnel on scene, quicker scene times, more ability to protect the lives and property, and then also to protect the lives of the personnel working on the fire. And then obviously too, we have outlined the stronger regional preparedness. So becoming more collaborative with our local agencies is going to make for a more larger and more robust response. It's going to make for a more seamless and integrated response once we start working together more frequently. And then what are the benefits to our local fire agencies? Well, it's enhanced resource utilization, our improved operational coordination, and then the last one, which I'll dive a little bit deeper into, is the ISO rating, which is the Insurance Service Organization, which sets the fire rating for the cities, which has an impact on premiums for insurance for businesses and residents of the community. So as you see here, more effective and efficient responses may contribute to improved public protection classification scores through the ISO. And that's one of the main benefits that we get by providing more personnel on scene. So what is the ISO rating? It's the Insurance Service Office evaluates the community's fire suppression capabilities through its PPC classification or PPC program. The ratings are 1 through 10, 1 being the best, 10 being the worst. And currently the city of El Centro has a 3x rating, which essentially the 3x and some of the based off of homes and their proximity to fire hydrants and things of that nature. We do have a few areas in town where there are some pretty great distances between a fire hydrant, a water source, and the home. So we do, that's where we get that 3x classification is that we do have areas that have an expanded distance between a water source and the home itself. So how does the automatic aid improve and impact the ISO rating? Again, the improved response times. So the faster arrival is an important and key evaluating factor of the ISO rating. The increased staffing availability goes back to the effective response force, is that we're increasing the number of personnel, effective manpower on scene, and the deployment is also another focus of the ISO. And then it also demonstrates the regional coordination, which also ISO values in its evaluations. So while we want to enter into an agreement to improve the service level and improve the safety, it also has a direct impact or potential to have a direct impact on the insurance premiums that our citizens and our businesses pay in the city. So what we're doing here and what's showing on this slide is essentially the boundaries in which we're going to be servicing. So as I mentioned, it's the County of Imperial to a degree, the City of Imperial, and AMR. Well, AMR doesn't have any response area, so they're just providing the rehab component. But what we're identifying in this map is the boundaries in which we're going to respond to within the county and within the City of Imperial. So as you can see, we go out as far west as Sealy. We go as far south as Heber, then north to the City of Imperial. And that you see also in the northeast area, there's a little like outcropping there, that's IBC. So we identified areas within the county and with the City of Imperial that are going to be important for the automatic aid agreement to be beneficial for both agencies. And then you can see there in the middle, there's the City of El Centro. Highlighted in green is the boundaries of Station 3's response area. Highlighted in the darker blue is Station 1, and then the orange kind of yellowish is Station 2's response area. And so there's the City of El Centro, and basically what we're going to have is, for example, we have something in Station 2's district. The Heber station out of Imperial County is closest. They would be providing the automatic aid. And so the closest resource to the incident would be the one that would be responding in conjunction with our units or vice versa. And again, this is a temporary agreement, a year pilot program to kind of work out the kinks, see if there's, you know, what's good, what's bad, what can be better, what we can do to change or enhance the agreement. This is a contemporary model that a lot of agencies outside the county use. Quite honestly, we're a little bit behind the times in entering into this type of agreement because it really, when you look at it, it just makes sense for how we operate. And quite honestly, the lack of resources that we have locally, it just makes sense to have them coming right away versus waiting for that time lag when we know we're going to need them. The thing here is that when somebody has a fire in the county or in another city, we're going. And so it just makes sense to us to kind of cut out that dead space and improve the outcomes for our personnel and for our citizens by exploring this type of agreement. So I just wanted to bring this to you today to kind of give you a little bit of insight into that. And again, it's not that we're not participating. We've been participating in mutual aid since I've been here and longer. And we're finally coming up to a contemporary standard where we think we can make an improvement on the model that we've been without, right? Which we have been without an automatic aid agreement. The mutual aid just doesn't serve us as well as it could and it should. And so this is the next best thing, the better step in the right direction for servicing our agency. So if you have any questions, again, I'll be bringing this for future council for approval to enter into this agreement, but I'm available for questions.
I think I just have a question, if it's all right. Chief Bernal, can you show us again the map that shows all of the fire stations that are in place? I think it was slide 7. You know, when you're looking at a disaster, you're not looking about whose area you're in. You're looking at who's going to be the person that's going to come respond to my emergency and help my family. So I just commend both the collaboration that's going to take place with the coordination of these services. And the county has already been in discussion with this project that's possibly being put into place.
Yes, so far, the city of Imperial, they just had it on their agenda. They have approved it. AMR has approved the agreement, and it should be being brought to the County Board of Supervisors on the 17th of this month.
Excellent.
And everything indicates that everyone's going to approve the agreement.
Yeah, it's great. A regional approach is always the best approach, especially when we're taking a look at responding to literally an emergency. So thank you
And
for that.
Chief Bernal, so when do you plan to bring it to us? Would it also be on the 17th or?
I would like to bring it on the 17th as well. Just, I want to give a little bit of time to mull it over and again, just not hit you with it right away.
I think when it comes to public safety, I don't think there's a lot of, we don't need to mull it over, I think, this is a priority I know it is for most of my council members, all of our council members, so, the sooner the better.
It will be
Yeah.
on the agenda in
Yeah.
the next meeting.
Okay. And, just one other question, when you were talking about the fire hydrants and the distance, so what would it take to install more fire hydrants in those areas where?
Give him more money, right?
Abraham, we need more fire hydrants.
$1 million.
It's on the wish list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like something to start, to think about, start
It
planning.
comes out
for.
some of the areas that we've annexed within the last previous year, like Beverly and Bell or some areas where it's you're 1,000 feet from the nearest fire hydrant. So the fire hydrants on Dannenberg, you drive all the way down the cul-de-sac and I mean, that's 1,000 feet away.
Yeah.
It's true.
Firemen can actually lay their own hose and relay pump and do things to overcome that particular problem.
Oh, okay,
So while it is a concern, there's a workaround there.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, a little more time consuming, but we usually
where
figure
there's-
it out.
Kind of like where there's a will, there's a way,
Oh,
right?
yeah, we
Yeah.
don't carry all that hose for nothing.
Okay.
They can take water to a desert.
All righty. Well, Chief Bernal, I think, colleagues, any other questions or comments for Chief Bernal?
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
And we
for your
look
time.
forward to seeing that item on the next agenda.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
All righty. Okie dokie. Well, colleagues, we now move on to our task force reports. And I think I will start with Councilmember Carter.
Good evening. As I've been trying to ignore this cramp I'm having in my leg, so I'm going to be brief. I hope everyone had a really good Thanksgiving, first of all. I did have the honor of attending the historic event at the 100th anniversary for the courthouse. That was a phenomenal event. I've been around long enough to see a lot go on and hope to see a lot more years. I did express to them that evening. And we also had our hospital board meeting. And the mayor and I had the task force to end homeless meeting. And we did have a lot of takeaways. And as we said, we had homework to do. So we're going to work on some homework there. And I did attend a lot of other events, and I just love doing, serving the community. But I'm going to end my report there. Thank you.
Councilmember Garcia?
I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving with their family. Looking forward to the holidays and hope everybody stays safe out there in our great city. And that's pretty much it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Interim Mayor Pro Tem Cardenas Singh?
Yes, just a couple of events, very much echoing the activities as shared by Council Member Sonia Carter. But what I will share with colleagues, this is my last committee report. So I want to say I am so proud of today's agenda, talking about making sure that we left the city or that I'm leaving the city in the best hands possible and with our incoming city council members as well. Just to recap what's happened tonight for our constituents, our council has left this fiscal year with a 2.9 million surplus, showing our fiduciary responsibility. Milestone, a moment with our tax shared agreement that allows us to annex, actually take on, so that our public knows what that means, that we're actually going to have the opportunity to expand the city limits, that we are going to have an agreement with the county that will allow us to grow our city limits, which then allows the opportunity for growth, Mr. Abraham, which we're really excited for that and for Angel. In addition to that, the commitment that we've made to our employees, although it was on our consent agenda, know that the commitment that this council and the continuing council has made is that we're going to make sure that that compensation study takes place so that we right size our staff and make sure that it's meeting the market value when it comes to the salary for employees. So it's been a great pleasure. It's been amazing spending time with you. And I know we still have our reorg, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to highlight all the great things that happened on tonight's agenda. So thank you so much. And that's the end of my report before the tears start coming down. Thank you.
Councilmember Oliva,
Um,
are you gonna cry?
No, I'm just,
He paused.
I'm not at 100% right now,
Oh.
just because that's the reason why I'm wearing the mask. And so I just want to say that I really do hope everyone enjoyed some time off with their families. We are coming up holidays, and for many, it's fun. For our residents and our constituents, it's going to be a good time. For staff, thank you in advance for the preparation that you're going through to make sure that this time is a little bit more festive for folks. And so I know that you're from the library to community service to events, public works. We have parades coming up. We have Christmas tree lighting coming up, public safety. I know that there's maybe some communication with Santa as to whether or not Santa will be able to visit some parts of town. And so I just know what I'm trying to say is you all are hands on deck. And so for the month that's going to come, I just want to say thank you in advance and hang in there. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Oliva. I forgot that you weren't feeling well. So I thought you were getting a little sentimental because of Martha's comments, so. Yeah. Alrighty. So, one thing I know that we were all at many of the same events, but one thing that I do want to highlight is the ribbon cutting of of Ursa, the restaurant that's in the downtown area. That's become a popular spot. And from what I hear from many people that have visited the restaurant, their food is pretty good. And they catered the State of the City address, so I do have to say that it was delicious. So hopefully they are here, for years to come, and hopefully that'll bring in new restaurants and entertainment to the downtown area, because as you know, Martha and I have been working on revitalizing the downtown area, so I'm excited about that. I also attended the courthouse 100-year celebration. I wasn't there at the beginning because I was at the Holiday Expo to make the opening comments. A young lady by the name of Ashley, she organized a huge event at the MLK, and she brought all these different vendors that do event planning and so on under one roof, so she asked me to make the opening comments, to her inaugural event. And so, but I did attend the presentation by Judge Plourde at the courthouse on the history of the courthouse, and that was really interesting. He had quite a few pictures the beginnings of that courthouse. So I also that evening attended the Accessity Business Loans 30th anniversary celebration that was held at the Cambria Hotel. And, you know, they are, Accessity is, they used to be known as Accion, and they make small business loans to prospective entrepreneurs and, you know, existing entrepreneurs. And so, you know, considering, you know, that my background with the SBDC, because this was really an SBDC event, I thought it was important, you know, because, you know, promoting that entrepreneurial spirit is really what makes our community very fruitful. And so I would also like to invite everybody to our Christmas tree lighting ceremony, which we held this Friday at Fire Station 3. And so it will start at 5 p.m. And this year, as you've probably already seen, we have a brand new Christmas tree. It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
And so I can't wait to see it all lit up. And so I will be hosting the event together with our city manager, Mr. Cedric Cesenia. We will have entertainment, food vendors, cookie decorating, live music, and so much more. And then Santa will arrive at 7 p.m. to light the tree and then take pictures with all the visitors. So please come and join us for this festive event. Then on Saturday morning, we have the El Centro Christmas Parade that is put on by the Imperial Valley Regional Chamber of Commerce. So this year's theme is Christmas traditions around the world. So the city will have a few floats. And so we will be riding on those floats this coming Saturday morning, and the parade starts at 10 a.m. And our El Centro Library is also having their Gingerbread Tales and Treats Christmas event from 4 to 6 p.m. on December the 12th. And so we invite the community to come out. They will have crafts, holiday theme activities, and snacks. Santa Claus will make an appearance and be available for photos. And so please visit the library for this wonderful event, because I know that the staff at the library is so creative. I can just imagine how cute it's going to look. So that concludes my report. And Mr. Cedric Cesenia, would you like to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It definitely was a busy November, and it looks like it's going to be a busy December as well. I won't be decorating any cookies, and I won't sing either, but I'll be there, and we'll have a lot of fun. One of the things that I do want to thank staff for is the master tax share. That's a 3-year in the making at least. 2 years that the day I walked into the city manager's office, had my first meeting with council, it was one of the items that they gave me as you must complete before, you know, the end of the year. And unfortunately, that was not possible. Here we are 2 years later. But we're certainly delivering on that request. I hope that, you know, it is, you know, a long time coming. Our developers that were here earlier, we heard from them regularly. Staff fielded questions and concerns on a regular basis. So I do want to highlight the work that our staff did. Adriana, you know, tremendous, you know, force, you know, behind the efforts. Like Angel did. Angel did a lot of the work, and most of the hardest part of the work is actually putting together the thoughts into, you know, a document that is cohesive and actually puts forward, you know, the way the city wants to make this master tax share look. And certainly Abraham played a key role in getting us there. A lot of them have historical value that I didn't have at the time when we walked into the room into negotiations. So it was rather difficult to, you know, put it together. However, I also want to highlight the work that the county CEO's office did on this particular item. You know, it was not an easy process, simply because we were trying to construct something that would be beneficial to both sides. And at this point, I felt very comfortable that the item that you guys approved earlier tonight is a good document that, you know, now I think Miguel and I can say it'll be the model for others, you know, to come in Imperial County. I'm very proud of the work that our team put together. They deserve all the praise for getting it to where it got. So thank you guys for the work you guys put forward. And, you know, obviously thanks the staff over at the county as well. There was a lot of us in a room at one time. trying to figure this whole thing out. So thank you guys, much appreciated. Gracias totales from the bottom of my heart to getting this done before before I leave office, here with the city, because I promised that I would get it done, right? And I didn't do it. You guys did. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cesenia. Mission accomplished. So proud of all of you. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, that is a huge accomplishment. So, alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it is 8:05 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Have a